Hi, Daryl Ritchie here. Did you know you were born with a brain for relationship? By 24 to 26 weeks early in the third trimester, your brain had everything it needed to function fully as a human being. You weren't thinking much, but you were experiencing. For the purposes of our discussion, we're going to focus on two brain regions. Cortical region, the subcortical region. The cortical area is the outside area of the brain, also referred to as the cerebral cortex. It is your thinking brain. The cerebrum is the most highly developed part of the human brain and is responsible for thinking, perceiving, and understanding language. Most information processing occurs in this area. Psychologist Elvin Tolving used the word noetic for this thinking part of the brain. The subcortical area of the brain is the lower interior part of the brain. It's represented here in red. It's the non-thinking area of the brain. Tolving called it anoetic. Here's where your emotions and personality begin. Broadly speaking, the main function for the purpose of our discussion includes regulation of emotions and regulation of instinctive responses, for example, freeze, fight, flight responses, hunger, and other automatic processes. The thinking area of the brain in human beings is massive compared to every other creature with a brain, and there's a single gene that's responsible for that difference. The gene is named ARHGA11B. You don't need to remember that. What is important, though, is that that single gene gives us the ability to review our history of learning and to use that review as a way to make changes in the way that we react to future situations. Tolving called this ability autonoetic. It's the ability to think about what we're thinking about, and it makes us as human beings very different from animals. So this autonoetic thinking area of the brain involves the outer part of the brain, the cortical region. Let's switch gears for a minute and talk about the subcortical region, the part that you're born with. Psychologist Jaak Panksepp was reliably able to reproduce 7 systems of emotions in the brain. He did that mostly with animals, rats in particular, by stimulating those inner brain parts. But this can be reliably seen also in human beings. Let's review each of those, and particularly the way in which they foster a relationship. The first of the operating systems Panksepp called seeking. It is the idea of us being satisfying every motivated behavior. We use it in everything throughout the day. So if I'm thirsty, I'm motivated to find something to satisfy that thirst, and I will search my environment to do that, whether it's water or some other beverage. In relationship, it's the idea that as human beings, we are social by nature and we look for relationship. So we meet another individual, we are motivated by seeking to know more about that person. In close relationship, it's our desire to continue to build information about the other. John Gottman referred to this as building your love map. A second operating system proposed by Panksepp he called care. It's the idea of nurturing another, and it is wholly relational. A third operating system, play or social joy. Panksepp talked about the rough and tumble play of childhood as an example. But there's also the idea of just human beings enjoying each other's company. So we have social gatherings that are built in many ways ritually in our society as a way to get together and enjoy each other's company. Another operating system, lust. Need I say more? It's the idea of desiring sex. And here's where we can really understand the interplay between the subcortical region that's so automatic and that cortical region, the thinking, autonoetic part of the brain that uses our past learning as a way to understand how to moderate that motivation. Another operating system, panic, or sadness. Now, on the surface, these don't sound relational. Sounds like anxiety and grief, and in a way it is. Panic is the idea that when I'm separated from another person, I become anxious until we're reconnected. The best example I have of this is a personal example that I like to use. It's when I met a beautiful young woman some 30 years or so ago, and we spent a lot of time together, and then she was called out of town on a business trip. She was gone for 2 weeks, and in those days we didn't have cell phones. So every night when she would get off work, I'd be calling her hotel room to just spend time with her on the phone. And I would quote her definitions of love and poetry about love and that sort of thing. I was just love sick. And the night that she got back from that trip, I asked her to marry me. Now that is panic. Fear. Fear has the idea of both being awe-inspiring and showing a possible danger. One example I can think of is when I was a little boy, first time I went to the Grand Canyon. And there was a viewing area where you could go right up to a cliff point before you saw the canyon. There was nothing protecting you from the canyon, falling into the canyon, except a single railing. I was at once fearful of falling off into that huge expanse and awe-inspired by its beauty. I think fear is relational in the sense that if there is a danger, I can gather up those that I most love and try to help escape. The final area, Panksepp called rage. We know it as aggression or anger. And again, I think it's mostly relational in that in a context where there's a threat, we would fight back for those that we most care about. Now, these operating systems may act separately from each other, but most often there is an interaction. So let me give you an example. Let's say that I'm in a progress of play with another person, say a guy, and we're verbal sparring. And I say something that's sarcastic, that's hurtful to him. He experiences fear, maybe rage, and backs away from me. I experience panic because I see him withdrawing and I don't want to lose the relationship. So I switch over to care in order to nurture the relationship, and maybe even seeking so that I can learn what happened in that situation in the future. I'll be more careful about what I say. Although we were born with a relational brain, life circumstances or poor adjustments can cause us to have an anti-relational brain rather than a relational brain. So what is called poor attachment during childhood, if we develop high levels of anxiety due to poor parenting or maybe an avoidance style because we fear being abandoned in a relationship, that can create problems in relationship later on. Also, trauma anytime during the lifespan can create an anti-relational brain because it increases the amount of fear and rage. And then finally, all sorts of addictions supplant relationship. They replace relationship. So it certainly happens with substance disorders that alter the structures of those subcortical regions of the brain and replace it with the substance over the relationship. But also other sorts of addictions like eating disorders and pornography or sexual addictions can also impair relationship. I think it's important for us to understand that we are born with a relational brain, that it's required for us to moderate some of the functioning of those things that we were born with to have a more mature type of relational behavior, and to be have an understanding of where we can get back on track if things of life have gotten us off track, like the attachment problems, trauma, and addictions. Now I want to mention one more thing. Panksepp and Tulving and many other neuroscientists are Darwinian evolutionists, and they refer to this theory often in their writings. So a set of emotional operating systems present at birth in all animals, and a single gene differentiating human beings in their ability to plan for future action that fosters and develops those relationships. Darwinian theorists would suggest this is evidence of occasional accidental gene mutation within a prolonged process of heredity based on random selection. Conversely, proponents of intelligent design would say that the similarities reflect single authorship, and the variations are intentional and purposeful. I review the theories of mutation, natural selection, intelligent design, gap theory, young Earth, old Earth, calculations and probabilities. It's all over my head. In his book, Mere Christianity, C.S. Lewis makes the case that we can't know everything directly. There are so many things that we haven't experienced. So in those cases, we have to rely on trusted authority. I know the one in whom I placed my trust, and I am quite certain that the life purposes he has established for me are safe in his hands. Please visit my website, darylritchie.com. There you can find videos, articles, other resources, contact information. And if you wish, you can make an appointment. I provide online counseling services, and where you live doesn't matter so much. So long as you have internet or even a telephone, we can probably make a contact. Additionally, if you'll click on the first line of the title of this video or on that little downward arrow at the end of that line, it'll open up the description box and there will be links there for additional resources. I really appreciate you watching. If you did enjoy this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe and share. There's a notification bell down there. If you click on that bell, you get first notification of my next video, because I have a lot more to say and I'm not done yet. Thanks for watching.